All right. Then why don't we turn it over to, I think Dan is listed next. Dan Grudzielanek, are you around? You're
Yes.
ready to do
Yes,
your
we are
thing.
ready to go here.
Okay. And hi, Tara. I see you sitting there.
Hello.
Excellent. Well, why don't you just launch right on into it then, Dan, and see what you got.
All right, excellent here. So, all right. So, good evening, everyone. Living here in Southeast Wisconsin, that gives us relatively easy access to the Chicago area and the large volumes of rail traffic that moves through Chicago every day. It makes for an easy day trip. So I just thought I'd share some of the shots that I've taken over the years, going back to the mid 90s up until more recent years. So we'll just kind of take a swing around the Chicago area, starting at Rondout along the Canadian Pacific line between Milwaukee and Chicago. Metra operates the line as far as Rondout. Here we see back in 1999 a outbound afternoon commuter train with one of their F40C locomotives. Amtrak, of course, operates on the line between Milwaukee and Chicago. We see a Hiawatha service train. Another one of the F40Cs on a evening rush hour train. And this is where Metra's Fox Lake line swings off to the west here from Rondout. And here we see a train coming off the Fox Lake sub heading towards Chicago. And like we said, the Canadian Pacific runs through here back in 2003, train 288. And right behind the SD60, those are all truck frames that were built here at Tower Automotive in Milwaukee. So that's something you won't see anymore. All right, we'll go out on the Union Pacific's Geneva subdivision that heads west from Chicago. This is at Elmhurst, Illinois. Back in 2003, pair of SD40-2s, the nose bell on the lead locomotive gives away its Chicago Northwestern heritage. Same here. This is a little farther west, still in the Elmhurst area. Westbound manifest. Lombard, back in 2000, eastbound intermodal train. And same location in 2010 with a coal train bound for the Edgewater Power Plant in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Metra operates on this route between Chicago and as far west as Elburn. And this is at the College Avenue station. Continuing on to Wheaton, here we see a eastbound intermodal train curving through the downtown area with a still very nice looking SD60M. And pretty much same area, 2015 eastbound North Platte Proviso manifest. And then just on the west side of Wheaton, there used to be a interurban line that passed through Wheaton. The bridge is still there. It's now a bike path, but there's a off the side of the road there's a bridge here that gives a nice perspective of the main line, including for the 4014 when it came through last July. And then moving on to West Chicago, another Metra station. This view is looking west. Looking east, we see an outbound Metra train. And right behind him, a westbound empty coal train. All right, let's go back all the way into downtown Chicago. This is just north of Chicago Union Station. This is Amtrak train number 8, the Empire Builder, arriving. Unfortunately, you can no longer get this view with the drawbridge in the background, that's the old Chicago Northwestern line that used to go all the way out to Navy Pier. This you can't get this view anymore because there's now a large, there's a high-rise building that covers this entire scene. But an interesting perspective is from the Sears Tower. This is back in 2009 looking south. Let me see here if I can do this here. Laser pointer. All right, so this is Amtrak's main line heading south from Union Station. This is Roosevelt Road, and you have Amtrak's coach yards, Metra's coach yards. This is the St. Charles Airline that connects the Union Pacific and Canadian National. This here is known as the Union Avenue Y. It's the beginning of BNSF's Chicago subdivision that heads west from Chicago. And then out in the distance, there's the 18th Street that crosses over the main line here as well. See if I can, all right, so down on Roosevelt Road, gives a close-up view of Metra's coach yard, as well as Amtrak's coach yard. And spin around looking to the north, great view of all the Amtrak and Metra trains coming and going from the south side of Union Station. This is Amtrak train number 49, the Lakeshore Limited, as it's backing in to Chicago to make its morning arrival. A lot of Metra trains, a lot of them are on the BNSF route that goes out to Aurora. Dropping down to 18th Street. Here, this is train number 6, the California Zephyr, coming off the Union Avenue Y. It's going to pull south of the Y and then back into Union Station. This location also gives an excellent view of Amtrak's locomotive servicing facility. All right, swinging west on BNSF's triple track Chicago subdivision. We find ourselves in Riverside, 1998, with a former Santa Fe SD45-2 leading a container train. LaGrange Road, 1995, a former Rio Grande SD40 T-2 leading a Southern Pacific intermodal train. The Southern Pacific had trackage rates on the Burlington Northern to get into Chicago. 1997, this is after the Santa Fe and Burlington Northern merger, but still have a couple of BNSD 40-2s leading an intermodal train. And how about a couple of C33-7s with an autorack train. Moving west to Western Springs, very nice location to spend some time. We see a Portland, Chicago priority intermodal train. That gets us to the Highland Station. Great location to spend an afternoon of rail fanning. Afternoon back in 1998, found a couple of BNSF SD70 Max with a manifest train. In 2003, a former Burlington Northern SD40-2. And the Union Pacific inherited the trackage rights from the Southern Pacific. And one of the trains that the UP sent over the route for a time was the very high priority Chicago-Los Angeles intermodal train. We see passing Highlands. Of course, BNSF runs plenty of their own. And this Highlands is a great place to watch the Metro rush hour every afternoon. You see in the distance a couple of local trains on the outer tracks with an express train running up the center track here. Every afternoon, Amtrak's Illinois Zephyr gets in the mix. Here we see Amtrak overtaking one of the Metro trains. Moving on, the next station west is Hinsdale. Back in 2009, 3 ES44 DCs that are brand new leading a westbound train. Downers Grove, another one of my favorite locations. Here we see a Bedford Park Tacoma intermodal train overtaking a metro train. Former Santa Fe, and still wearing the Santa Fe Warbonnet paint scheme, a BNSF SD75. Amtrak's Southwest Chief runs through here every day. And BNSF former Santa Fe -9. Again, another excellent spot to watch the Metro rush hour. And so as the sun sets here in Downers Grove, we'll move on west to West Eola. BNSF has a small yard here that straddles both sides of the main track. Excuse me. Back in 2006, a trio of 4-axle locomotives leading a intermodal train. And by 2012, that's not a sight you would see anymore. Everything is 6-axle locomotives now on the road trains. It can be a very busy location between trains stopping here to do work, do crew changes, and of course the metro trains passing through. Those views of are looking east, looking west. Here we see a coal train. And then out in Aurora, this is the end of metro service on the route. Metro train here at the Aurora station. And then up above is where the main line passes through. Back in 1998, a couple of Burlington Northern SD40-2s with the Bedford Park Tacoma container train. All right, we'll swing down to BNSF's, or the former Santa Fe, now BNSF Chillicothe subdivision. Here, this is 1995. This is before the merger, so this is still the real Santa Fe here. Their hot train 199 from Willow Springs to Los Angeles. It was just departing from Willow Springs with a brand new SD75 on the point. Moving on to Joliet, a new Santa Fe -9 with an intermodal train. 2000, this is several years after the BNSF merger, but it was still nice to see a Warbonnet leading trains here. A couple of former BN and Santa Fe pair of SD40-2s. By 2005, everything was, there was a lot more BNSF locomotives running around. Now this area changed quite a bit in the 2015-2016 time period. The passenger platforms got realigned here. Passenger trains no longer stop at the old station. A new station was constructed on the east side of the tracks. So this is just kind of a before and after comparison. This is in 2009, one of Metra's Heritage Corridor trains arriving. You notice all the passengers they had, after getting off the train, they would have to cross the BNSF main tracks here. But by 2018, you can see how the layout has changed. Now back in 2018, you could still access the old passenger platforms. The last information I saw, it looks like they are no longer accessible. It's only accessible for private parties now. Heading back into Chicago a little bit, Brighton Park. It was well known for the semaphores that still controlled train traffic through here. It was a manual interlocking, so all trains had to stop, get permission from the operator, and then proceed through. And the operator was in that shanty, and it was all manual levers that operated the semaphores. this whole area was modernized several years ago, and these semaphores are all gone now. Down the line a little bit is Hayford. This is along the Belt Railway of Chicago. Back in 1995, a pair of Northwestern units with an empty coal train. 2000, CSX SD50 with a transfer run. It's a little east of there. Back in 1995, the BRC was still running with their Elcos. Let's see, this is a pair of Elco C424s at the Rockwell Street Yard. Blue Island, a well-known location for all the rail lines that interact here and cross the Calumet-Seg channel. Right to left, you have CSX's Blue Island sub, CSX's Elsden sub that they acquired from the CN a few years ago. That's the former Grand Trunk Western. You have the Indiana Harbor Belt main line that passes through. And then on the far left is a couple of connecting tracks between the IHB and either the CSX Elsden sub or Metra's Rock Island district that passes overhead just behind there. So that's Metra's Rock Island district on the bridge in the background as we see a CSX train coming through. Not too far from Blue Island is Dolton. CSX's main line going east from Chicago passes through here, as well as the Indiana Harbor Belt main line. Here's one of their locals with Quail steel cars, and even had an interesting caboose on the end of the train. CSX train coming over under the signal bridge. All right, moving east, this is along Norfolk Southern's Chicago line at Hammond Whiting. Back in 2007, train 205. Notice all the block of auto parts boxcars. That's a sight you pretty much don't see anymore. And with the sun getting low in the sky, train 22W leaving the Chicago area. And then finally, just into Indiana, into East Chicago, Indiana. This is a location along NS's Chicago line. There's actually 4 different railroad properties here. You have NS's 3-track main line. You have the Indiana Harbor Belt that crosses both NS and crosses a Canadian National branch line, and then goes in to connect with the Arkler Middle Steel Mill private railroad. Here's a couple of the Arkler Middle locomotives. NS Local went in to grab a cut of Quail steel cars. Back on the main line, NS train 26N that originated off of BNSF at Corwith Yard. And one of the steel mill switchers with a train of steel slabs on cars that are definitely not in interchange service. In fact, note that there's not even any air hoses between the cars. And did catch the CN local on their line, train R980, which as far as I know, this is the only train that operates on this line. And with that, that is it. Thank you very much.
Well done, Dan. Nicely done. Good job. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Grudzielanek?
Well, since I'm from Nebraska and I'm still learning all this area, where is Blue Island?
It's on the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to make a trip down there.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it.
I've heard about it.
Excellent. Thanks, Kate. Anybody else have any questions or shout outs for Dan?
Dan, I have a question from California.
Yes.
I'm an old signal fanatic. Are there any old searchlight signals left out there? Or position lights or anything?
I'm trying to think. A lot of that stuff's been replaced, of course, over the past several years. I know up here in the Milwaukee area, the CP still has some searchlight signals. I know
Harvard
like,
still has them too for the moment.
Yeah, I know like NS used to have a lot of the color position light signals, but a lot of those, pretty much all of them, have been replaced now in the Chicago area.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thanks. Great show. Great variety. Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Dan. Round of applause for Dan. You can see everybody doing that. That's wonderful.